That might be me.
Just future, your mic. And when I go in.
This mic is right next to me.
I feel like I'm in a sci-fi movie.
Well, I added sound effects in my presentation.
The thing that accountants have.
Tuesday, July 18th, 2023, and it's 1:30. And I'd like to call the meeting to order. May we have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Goldberg,
Present.
Commissioner Peters,
Present.
Commissioner David,
Present.
Vice Mayor Stern,
Present.
Mayor Moore,
Present.
Town Manager Labadie,
Present.
and Town Attorney Rubin.
Present.
If we could all please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Do we have any changes for the agenda? If there are no changes, if we could please have a motion.
I move we accept the agenda as presented.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion carries unanimously. Are there any public comments today? Okay, seeing no public comments, we'll move on to presentations and proclamations. Our first presentation is of the comprehensive annual fiscal report for fiscal year ending September 20th, 2022.
Testing. Oh, that's a little loud. Okay, sorry about that. All right, so I got to do a couple things here at once, and that's fine. So what the comprehensive annual financial report, that's our audit. And so every year we are required, and you might have the full audit in front of you. We just got those bound. It'll be available online. Matter of fact, they also go to the state of Florida, the Auditor General. Everything on there gets inputted and up there, and the deadline is June 30th. And so we were successful with that. Challenge this year was that, we had a new auditing firm. And so, it took them a while. I discussed this with the auditing firm and I said, okay, next year we're going to give you the trial balances by December. You're going to come into our offices for testing in February, and we're going to be complete by March. The reason why is because you don't want to be doing audit stuff while you're also working on current year stuff, while you're also preparing for next year's budget. It's just a horrible cycle to be in. So they assured me that, we should not have any of these hurdles in the future, and we'll be on track. And so, but just some highlights. So you have the presentation there. Let's see if I can do the full screen. Yeah. All right. So doesn't show up nicely on that. I don't know why, but anyway, so the first page there, our audit, unmodified, clean opinion. That's what you want in an audit. Okay, so that's excellent. Also look there, it says our net position, right? The net position encompasses the overall financial position of the government, of our little town, right? And it also looks at the long-term perspective on the government's financial health. Okay, it's one of those numbers that you want to look at and you want to make sure that you're monitoring. Okay, and you can see there, it's very, very similar to a for-profit company where you have assets, right? Liabilities, what's net position? In layman's terms, it's equity. It's what you have left over. And that gauges where we can go in the long term. And so as you can see, and as we'll get into it, it increased by 1.3 million or about 5.8%, but that's across every fund. Okay, that's water, that's sewer, that's building department. And we'll go through and I'll show you where that number comes up. So the next slide, and again, this is just the main part of it. The breakdown of the net position there, you can see governmental funds and business funds. What are business funds? Business funds are those water and sewer. In the government world, we call those business funds. The reason why is because they operate just like a business, revenues minus expenditures, as opposed to governmental funds. Government funds don't operate like a business. And so at the end of the day, you can see that we had revenues come in. You can see our expenditures right there. You can see that on the general fund, we had a net surplus before transfers. And then you can see that we then transferred the money over to the water fund to pay for debt service, right? And you can see the bottom line there, that bottom line number is $678,000. That's, in a nutshell, that's about what we had left over at the end of the year, okay, to carry forward into the future year. And trust me, that's always a good thing. Then in addition, you can also see the other thumbs up there. We added approximately $1 million in total assets during improvements. You know, here's the reality. If you are not investing in your infrastructure, you are just delaying the inevitable. Every asset we have requires maintenance, requires renewal, replacement. And unfortunately, you see those governments that don't focus on that, and they don't focus on their infrastructure and the rehabilitation of it, or the upgrades and the renewals. And the proverbial can gets kicked down the road, and there's devastation in the foreseeable future. But that's not our case. Okay, your staff, we look at our assets, we see what needs to be replaced within the useful life, and obviously we replace that. So that's a great thing to do. The next page, I think I got kicked off there. Let me see. The next page is the thing I want to talk about. I'm on page, I don't know, should have put page numbers on there, but anyway, I'm on the next page. Long-term liabilities. So this is great, right? We got to add and improve our existing infrastructure, and we also reduced our long-term liabilities by $1.4 million. Okay, again, this is all good stuff. That's why you have the green thumbs up there. Okay, these are all the things that you want to see as a resident, as an employee, as a board member. These are all good indicators of what happened in 2022. The final thing is you'll see that here we have our fund balance. So our fund balance there on the bottom there, you can see that all of the different departments had a positive change, either in fund balance or net position. And so you can see there that the general fund, we only added about $9,000. It was very, very close. We are still fighting inflation, right? But you can see that at the end of the day, the general fund had about $9,000 left over, okay? The building fund had about $412,000 left over. Now, that's good. A lot of that is the result of that great interlocal agreement that we have with Gulfstream, right? Bringing on that service through a partnership with another local government, right? To lower our overhead. And the way we have that structured in where if we need to use more resources, well, we have those resources with cap government, right? They're not a fixed hard cost. So again, this is all excellent stuff that we've seen here in 2002. And then you can see there, water and sewer. Now, also note this, that this is accounting ease, okay? The numbers you're looking at are accounting stuff, right? And let me give you an example. we had debt service, which isn't showing up on here, but that's principal and interest, right? And typically principal payments go against the balance sheet of life and the interest part goes against the expense side of life. But you can see here when you're talking about net position and fund balance, you're talking about that equity. You know what I mean? You're talking about those healthy enough reserves for the long term, for the future. So it all looks good. The next page, I think we're on the final page. So this is what we had to overcome. And your staff, including Susie Matthews, I would be able to do absolutely nothing of this without her and my other staff, Dee Dee, she's out, and as well as all the town employees gather up. It's really a great work environment. Everyone takes ownership in their budgets. They're interested in it. We work together. It's a very good, healthy environment. But you can see here, what did we do? If you go to the next page, what did we do? What you're looking at here are prior year audit findings. Go to the next page. Oops. Yeah, it should be the second to the last page. Should be the last page. Oh, right. Oh, yep, you're right there. Okay, so what did we do this year in 2022? We cleared out all prior year audit findings. See, if we don't clear them out, they stay there. If they continue to be an issue, thank you. They continue to be an issue, they remain on there. We cleared all of those out. And so I've got phenomenal staff, phenomenal support to do the job that the board has hired me to do. And we cleared out all of those audit findings. And so that's actually a great thing. Matter of fact, we've been told the state of Florida, because, you know, we get a letter. We get a letter if we don't correct these things, if they go what they call uncorrected, you know? And so, but at the end of the day, we're able to do that and they will no longer pose an issue going forward. But unfortunately, our auditors did a great job and they found a new one. Okay. And so what this new one is an SRF loan compliance requirement. And so we have an SRF loan. And what do they require? You can see there that we met the pledged revenue, right? But the reason why is because we pledge our ad valorem taxes against the note that we took out. We have insurance, but I could not certify by September 30th that all of the above were true. But the reason why is we didn't have a separate debt service account. So here's what this loan wants in a nutshell. It wants you to have a bank account here for your normal operations. But and then what it wants is it wants a separate, what we call a debt service account. And what that is that we pull money out of there and we set it aside to make debt service payments. It's one of their compliance things where they say, hey, we want to make sure that you're not spending your mortgage money, right? It's like an escrow. And so staff is correcting that. Matter of fact, what you have before you is we're opening up a separate debt service account at our existing bank. And all we're going to do is we're going to transfer the money that's in our operating account, move it over to the debt service account, and that comment goes away. And then at the end of the year, I can certify that, yes, we have pledged revenues. Yes, we have a debt service account separately maintained. Yes, we have insurance. And yes, I can attest to all those things to you, SRF, to be in compliance with our loan documents. So all in all, it was a very good year. We got it done. Matter of fact, in about 3 or 4 months, we'll get right back into the cycle again. You know, we close the books in September. We leave things open through October, November to get those strangling accounts payable items in there. Do our adjustments, send it over. And my goal and my pledge is by this time, we will have this meeting now going forward in the month of March. I will present this to you and we'll be able to send it to the state of Florida 2 months ahead of schedule. And we'll be able to be on that rotation, which is a little bit cleaner. So if you have any questions, now's the time. Yes.
What does SFR or SRF stand for?
State revolving loan funds. Right. So the state of Florida gives us great interest rates, right? And so they get those from federal dollars as well as they have excess funds, right? What does the state of Florida do with their excess funds? It's almost like a bank, right? They want to make sure that they invest that back into the infrastructure. So yes,
So where is that? Where?
that is on the water side.
Okay.
It's a liability on our water
Oh,
fund.
that's the debt service.
Yes.
For our water.
Yep.
We get that from the.
Yep.
Okay, so
Yep.
that's.
So matter of fact, right there, right? So you can see there on the top there, see revolving loan funds
Okay.
right there.
That's the debt service, that separate debt service
Yes.
millage that we have. It's for that.
That's correct.
And that's through the state of Florida.
That's correct.
Okay.
And you want to do that. The reason why is because the state of Florida, they have excess funds. And as long as you meet their requirements, the state of Florida wants to reinvest back in its municipalities, right? And so, yeah, it's actually a great program and they're great to work with. They do this all over the state of Florida.
Okay. And then my other question, the findings, are they outlined in this bounded package that you referenced?
Yes, the current year, what you'll see is in the very, very back
In the back.
in what's called other reports. Yep.
Okay.
In the back, they'll tell you that they talk about internal controls, they talk about all their testing and so on and so forth. And the one line item I like in there, it just basically says that all prior year audit findings no longer exist. You know, they've been corrected. And then they go in, they say, hey, this is what we found in the current year. But again, once we open up that account, once we move those dollars over, that will never be an audit finding in the near future. So,
I had a question.
yes,
The debt service account. So actually, how much has to be put there? A year's?
yes,
payment?
exactly. Yeah. So what you do is every October, right? So really, these are just like normal amortization schedules, right? You have a fixed interest rate, nothing crazy. You know what your loan payments are going to do. We have the amortization schedules. So we know this time next year, here's how much in total we're going to be having to pay. So we just move that money in there and keep it in there. It's a hedge, right? For the bank that says, hey, okay, you're not, for a lack of a better term, co-mingling those funds with your normal operating funds. So yeah. It's very, very standard. And yeah, we'll take care of that. And to be honest with you, opening up another bank account within our current bank accounts, which, oh, by the way, this new account will not have any check writing. There's nothing to be paid out of it. It's just to show on paper that, yes, we've met this. It's a debt service requirement. And that's where it's held. It will be interest bearing. So, we'll gain interest on that. So.
Does that mean that we can just leave that there and pay the expenses every month out of our operating account?
Yeah. Yep, exactly. Right. They just want it segregated, right? So it's almost like anyone's mortgage, right? You sit there and you look at your monthly finances and you say, oh, okay, I'm going to pull out every month. I'm going to pull out. Matter of fact, this payment happens every 6 months, right? So it's not a monthly payment. It's every 6 months. So what they want you to do is they want you to, not dip into there. It's very, very common, and we'll correct it. And we'll have that certification signed off on it, and we'll move forward. So that's the audit. You have it in front of you. Take time. If you can't sleep at night, just turn to those notes, and that should do the trick. So if there are no other questions, the next item is just a budget recap.
Well, just a comment. Thank
yes.
you for the presentation, and I'm glad to see that we achieved that certificate of achievement for excellence in financial reporting.
Yes.
I know we didn't have it last year or
Yeah.
something, but because of, I guess, the late reporting, but I'm glad that we
Right.
have that.
It was tremendous. Again, you spoiled me here with great staff. You really have. And they're smart. They know what they're doing. I get to look at the big picture. They focus on the intricate details. I got to jump back and forth once in a while, but Susie does a phenomenal job And Dee Dee does a great job. And again, we're a good team, and but you need that balance of detail and broader thinking in an organization. Because sometimes, right, you can miss the forest through the trees, as they say. And so we were able to clear out all the prior audit findings, correct that moving forward. And that really should be your gauge. And that's our gauge, right? That's our gauge on how we did. And so, but we're looking forward to next year and it being pretty quick.
Does this go on the FAB agenda for review?
Yes, matter of fact, next week, everything you're reviewing here, we'll go through the FAB and I'll have the same discussion points with them as well. Yes, sir.
Okay, so we have the next presentation of the 2023-2024 proposed budget recap.
Here.
Again, as David's pulling that up, this is just a precursor to the tentative maximum millage rate resolution that we'll be passing. Again, holding that millage rate constant again for the fourth year. We have not made any substantive changes to the numbers. So all the numbers look the same. So that's why we called it a recap. There isn't anything changing. One of the last big items we have, we're hoping to be able to tackle over the next couple of weeks, which is healthcare. So once we get those numbers, we'll see if that has a substantive impact to the budget to change the numbers one way or another and see how that would shake it out. But I think we should be, what we're hearing from the brokers, healthcare should fit into the budget number, if not a little bit better than we anticipated. So,
Right.
But again, the proof's in the pudding. We'll see when they give us those numbers from the bidders to where our healthcare program will fit in.
Right. And the reason why also wanted to have a recap is because the next item that has to be voted on is our maximum millage. So part of the process is that staff has to be in constant communication with the property advisor, property appraiser, as well as with the state of Florida. And so we do this dance where we have to file certain paperwork at a certain time. And so it all starts with the board, right? And so we have to let the board know as staff, here's what we believe the maximum millage rate will be. The other thing too, we have to tell them is when we plan on holding our first hearing on it. And we also have to let them know the location and time. And so that's kind of that's the first domino in a series of dominoes. And so right now at this point, we're at that stage where we have to let them know what it is. And so what I wanted to do, we talked about this last month. Same thing, I streamed it down a little bit, but as the town manager said, nothing substantially changed. The next time we look at this, I'll have 2 additional months of data, right? That will be able to really tell us where we're at. So more data is always better. And so, but just to recap, we have our proposed operating millage. You can see that we decreased that on the operating side. And right now I'm just at this chart here. You can see that we did decrease the operating millage from 3.2294 to 3.2190. But keep in mind that this FY24 is all about the fire department and building it up. And so you can see that when we look at the expenditure side of life, I'm on slide number 4 of the presentation. If you remember, our operating expenditures decreased, but our personnel cost increased. So why is that? Well, remember, we're dropping Delray. Delray is for a proportionate time of the year. And then we begin adding our own fire department staff in March 2024. And so that's why you kind of see that shift there. But we have, and you'll also notice that capital outlay, because remember, right, we're trying to finish up between this fiscal year and next fiscal year. We're trying to finish up and complete, obviously we have a hard deadline that we have to maintain, complete the construction of the fire department. And so you can see that, okay, we reduced operating expenses, we increased personnel costs, we are carrying both for a short period of time. We are, right, so we are carrying some personnel and some Del Rey, but it's for a brief period of time. And then on top of that, we're also carrying, obviously, the construction loan. We're able to reduce the amount of transfer out to the water department. The reason why is because we're paying down the debt. You remember when we looked at the audit recap, we saw our debt balance go down. Well, that's as we continue to pay principal and interest, those dollars go down. If you look at our general fund expenditures by department, all this does is this now zooms in and it looks at each of our different departments. You know, the town is blessed to provide this many services to its residents. And so you can see there the fluctuation. You can see that the fire rescue building construction is a majority of this, right? You can see that fire rescue bringing on the staff as well as maintaining for a brief period of time the Del Rey contract. You can see that those are the big cost drivers. The other one that you'll notice in there is solid waste. If you look at solid waste, wow, David, that went up. Yep. If you recall, solid waste went up, right? Over 100%. And so we took all that into consideration going into the future years. This is our discretionary sales tax. The discretionary sales tax, the most important item is not necessarily on this slide, it's more on the next slide. These are items that we plan on funding through discretionary sales tax dollars. Discretionary sales tax dollars, those are restricted. You know, those are restricted, you know, for certain capital improvements into your government. And so there you can see, right, we're going to get to those signs, the north and south entry signs. We're going to do some bridge repairs, I think on Bell Lido, you know, if I'm not mistaken. We need to upgrade, right, some computers. Remember, in the prior year audit, right, we added about another $1 million of improvements to an aging infrastructure. This is where those funds go. And so we got some vehicle, we got Flock for the police department. We got library sewer rehab. But again, right now, that's the plan, and that's typically funded through discretionary sales tax dollars. The next one we're looking at is we're going to look at the building department. You know, the building department continues to remain healthy, right? And so that budget there, we're anticipating it growing overall by about 5.2%. Most of that is through the cost of living adjustments, which we had baked in there. Something new as well. Once we get our fire department, a new program that we're going to have our building department do is that fire marshal community risk reduction, right? So that's going to be something that our building department is going to be, you know, responsible for, and we're going to fund it from building department, right? But our fire department is going to be premier, and that's the goal that we want to deliver to you. And so what we're going to do is we're pulling funds from the building department for fire marshal and community risk reduction to look at all of these condos, right? To go through these condos with a fine tooth comb to make sure that safety is optimized. And that's, and this fund right now, we think we can do that going forward. That is extremely important. The water fund. Another thing that I need to bring to your attention is the water fund. Right now, we have some great preliminary data. Water is doing well. People are using water. We do expect water to go down because of the seasonality, but we do expect irrigation, right? We know how hot it is, right? We do expect irrigation to pipe up there. And so if you recall at our last meeting, water was doing tremendously well, right? It was up 23% from where we were at last year at this time. And irrigation was also up 23% from this time last year. And so 5%. At the end of the day, we're going to get one more billing cycle. We're going to get the August billing cycle. Right now, my data goes through April, May, which was billed in June. I'm going to get the August, which is for June and July. And so I'm going to have more data in my back pocket to be able to forecast that. But right now, what we need to do is we need to send a message on everyone's bill that lets them know the date and time of our hearing to discuss water rate increases. Right now, we have a fixed 8% that we had anticipated during our 5-year budget forecasting workshop. And so really what we have to do is we have to notice every user of our system. We have to notice them on their bill, the date and the time and the location of when that meeting is. So right now you'll see on your August water bill, you'll see that where we say, hey, we're having a meeting on September 5th at 5:01. And it'll be in this location to discuss and be able to take public comment and be able to have public's input into the rate increases and why we need that. Water fund, again, is we're anticipating the 5% increases in salaries. This is just a basic overview. Nothing has changed from the last time. Sewer fund, same idea. We had anticipated our preliminary budget to be about an 8% rate increase. Sewer is doing well, just along with water. But again, we're waiting for our August billing to get one more month of data. We'll actually have 5 of 6 billing cycles of data to be able to predict where we're going to land in 2024. This is our expenditures. Most of the expenditures is the increase in the sewer treatment. Not sure if you're aware of this, but we have an interlocal agreement with Delray. They treat our sewer. We own the lift stations, right? So from your condo, from your house, solid waste goes through the lift stations. They all pump up and all those pumps have to work. It's got to move that waste along underground until we can then get it to Delray to treat our sewer. And so we knew that was going to be happening. And then we also have an increase in capital expenditures because the reason why is we need to maintain those lift stations. Otherwise, it's going to be a problem. But right now, it's not necessarily a problem, but rehabbing, maintaining, making sure we had dual pumps in those lift stations in case one pump goes down. We have a redundant backup pump in there. That's standard across the board because we don't want sewer flowing through the streets. Again, for now, anyway, for the maximum millage, our preliminary budget is a little bit over $30,496,710. Our maximum, the millage rate that we're setting as our maximum millage is last year's rate is the 3.5875. And in September and August and September, we'll continue to refine these numbers and bring it back to you. But right now, we have a resolution, which is the next item. And I'll open it up to any questions. I know there's a lot to throw at you. I get that. And I know it's a little warm in here, or it's just me. But
Yeah, I have one question. So when are you going to get that information about the health insurance? When will the health insurance costs be known?
So we should have the bids back. What Eric was telling me, we should have bids back from Ryan Golden Associates latter part of this week. That will give us next week where we can start analyzing the numbers, the bids. Remember, we give you the big bid tab between all of the offers that were on the table. And the idea is hopefully get it in some reviewable format to the FAB on the 27th. So at the July 27th meeting, even though there won't be a physical quorum of the FAB, we could at least run by them and they can give us some generalized comment and support to move forward with staff recommendation on that. So, but again, the consultant is indicating we have options beyond Humana, which are kind of moving out of the marketplace. So we have some other companies that are hungry to get that business. So we should be in good space, and be within budget. I don't
Yeah.
foresee something jumping off the page.
And yeah, and that's the next goal in the next 2 months, right? The next goal is to get more data in, right, to find that out. You know, we've already looked at general liability insurance. We know that we know that we're a little bit high on that, so that'll come down. Just waiting on a little bit more data. But right now, what we need to do as far as the state of Florida and the millage process is we need to set a maximum. Right now, that doesn't mean that that's not going to change, but we can't go above that. That's what that means. And so at the end of the day, staff feels comfortable setting that right now. We'll get more data. We'll refine that. And we'll be able to hit the ground ready for our March 5th budget meeting for the first reading of it. And you'll have all new numbers. Matter of fact, what I'm going to bring to you is I'm going to bring to you what it was today and last month and what it changed to, right? Each line, so that you can, when you ask the question, well, what changed? Why did this go up? Why did this go down? Your staff obviously have the answers.
I'm going to step in on David. So I sent you a line by line budget. The comparison will be on a department level rather than so you don't have to go through 47 pages of line items where something may not have changed. So you're looking for those one-offs. So you're going to see it in the department level review. And we'll go over a little bit later on upcoming meetings. Because a couple other items that are with FOP, we've tentatively come to an agreement with, but they need to sign off so you can ratify. And then we do the annual salary warrant, which is basically a payment resolution or pay resolution for the non-union folks. So a couple of those items are still out there, but again, we're not going to be going over
Right.
what's presented
Yeah,
today.
it's not enough. So your
Yeah.
recommendation is the 3.5875 is to set the maximum. at
Yes,
that
ma'am.
level.
Absolutely.
David, did Palm Beach County, I think they're 4.5? Is that what, I just saw something in the paper. I don't know if it was.
Yeah, they reduced 15%. That's their biggest
Oh.
reduction since 2008, I think, 2009,
Yeah.
right around there. So
20 years, yeah.
they made a big reduction. Again, the county did quite well, a little bit better than we did on the overall property values. So that's really what was driving it, along with they have considerably more federal dollars that came in too.
Yeah.
So, and they're interesting, their interest earnings like ours, but on as you can imagine, a much greater scale, did quite well
Yeah.
with the rebounding of interest rates and stuff, because we're all have conservative investments. You know, they made a lot of money on their fund balance. So they were able to use those
Yeah.
things.
And the other thing too is that if you keep in mind your entire tax bill, the town only represents about 23 to 25%. You know what I mean? So the county, the school board and other standalone entities, they make up the remainder of it. So my theory is that although ours will stay the same for now, you should see a reduction in your overall.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I
Yeah.
mean, the county portion of it is a bigger
Oh,
portion of it.
absolutely.
So we're gonna see our own individual bills will go down
Yeah.
because the county
Yeah.
went down, but ours.
Right, they're definitely the lion's share of
Mhm,
of your total property tax
Mhm.
bill. Right.
mhm.
So the last item that I have is the resolution. And so staff is recommending approval of resolution 2023-014. And what that does is that sets the time, the date, the location, and the numerical value for the maximum millage rate. And staff is asking for your approval.
So any discussion on that? If there's no discussion,
I move that we accept resolution number 2023-014.
I second.
do we need a roll call for this?
Please.
Commissioner David,
Yes.
Commissioner Goldberg,
Yes.
Commissioner Peters,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Stern.
Yes.
And Mayor Moore.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Well, thank you very much.
That's all Steph has. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good job. Thank you.
Yeah. Moving along to announcements, board vacancies, board adjustment and appeals. We have 2 vacancies, all for 3-year terms, and 1 vacancy for an unexpired term ending September 21st, 2024. Natural Resources Preservation Advisory Board, 2 vacancies for unexpired terms ending April 30th, 2024. So hopefully we can get some volunteers for these boards. Meetings and events. Our next meeting is July 27th of 2024 at 11:30 a.m. And that's of the Financial Advisory Board. It's a regular meeting. August 1st, 2023 at 1:30 is our next town commission meeting. And then I guess there's no.
So
And-
then the third is not, so that tentative meeting does not exist. And I'll, at the end, during the manager's update, give you an update on the schedule.
So strike the August 3rd meeting. There are no board action reports at this time. Next item is ordinances. Ordinance number 2023-001. It's a second reading. An ordinance of the Town Commission of Highland Beach, amending Article 2 for the technical codes of Chapter 6, and it's to adopt the most recent edition of the International Property Maintenance Code. And we have the building official here to present this for us.
Well, this is quick. This is just the second read of the unbelievable. This is the first ordinance of the year, actually, which is amazing. And this is simply what we discussed last time that was unanimously passed, which was just updating the International Property Maintenance Code from the 2012 to the 2021 version. And that's it.
Any discussion amongst us? No, go ahead. No one.
No, I wasn't gonna discuss anything. I was just gonna
Oh,
call
I
for a
think
vote.
I need to open for public comments. Any public comments? If there, okay.
Rick Greenwald, Bellito. Very quickly, this isn't, I'm not in opposition. It's not a criticism. I just had some questions. I wasn't around for your last meeting, so it's conceivable that I missed some of this. Looking at, and I get that this is, an international thing and it's been passed in a million places and it's probably boilerplate and therefore not sure how relevant these questions are, but I still have found in the past that when I read an ordinance and I don't really understand what its meaning is, then probably there's some other people around who don't understand it either. So in this instance, I'm looking at specifically at section 6-29 under A, number 2, where it says that property maintenance code, section 302.4 is amended to provide that all premises and exterior property shall be maintained free from weeds or plant growth in excess of 12 inches. I understand all that language, obviously, that's pretty straightforward. What I don't understand is, are we referring to vacant lots? Lots under construction? All existing properties? Does this pertain to everything? It doesn't really, it's not very clear there. And secondly, what do they mean by plants? Most of us can agree on weeds, although you'll get arguments from some people about what's a wildflower and what's a weed, I suppose. But most of us can agree on weeds, but plants is a whole other thing. I mean, everybody who's a homeowner clearly has dozens of plants that are over 12 inches. So again, nothing nefarious. I get the purpose of this. We want everything to be neat and clean and aesthetic and all that. So noble purpose, but I don't understand the language and the enforceability. I may be missing something very simple. But just, I hate reading ordinances because this always happens to me if you actually read the small print kind of thing, but I just want to make sure that everybody understands before you're voting on something. Thank you. I'd be happy to address that. It actually is something quite simple. This
is the verbiage that we had to change to pick a very specific height. But within the code itself, it defines what the plant growth is, and it excludes obviously things that are planted for landscaping, such as annuals, perennials, and items like that. So all of this is very clear cut that this is specifically for nuisance weeds and people who choose not to cut their grass, and it is across the board for all properties. It's very, very, very standard.
Replacing one in 2012, but then couldn't find out what it was actually.
It's a separate book. It's like,
It's a separate.
Yeah.
it's a separate book that I'm sure the town has on file. That's the International Property Maintenance Code. And each one of these is where we had to fill it a number. Because it applies throughout the whole country essentially. So everyone's a little different.
Thank you for the comments. If there's a motion? Is there a motion?
I move that we accept on a second reading, Town of Highland Beach ordinance number 2023-001.
Second,
We need a roll call.
Commissioner David,
Yes.
Commissioner Goldberg,
yes,
Commissioner Peters,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Stern,
Yes.
Mayor Moore,
Yes.
motion carries.
Okay, moving on to the next item, the introduction of fire prevention code, the proposed ordinance.
So as Matt comes up here to kind of walk you through this, I just wanted to kind of reference something a little bit different in here. Linelda and I went around. So this is an introduction. So there's no first read. This is just to give you the background, the concept. And what Matt's also going to talk about is why this has to be done in a relatively expeditious manner. And as you could imagine, as we're creating a fire department, we have certain deadlines we have to hit. So Matt, if you want to bring them up.
Certainly. Good afternoon. First, to tackle the requirement for this, Florida statute 633 requires that on a triennial basis that local ordinance fire codes be readopted. And part of that process, we're right in the end stretch of that. So we're trying to get this done so we can get it up to the state fire marshal's office for their review by the end of August. That's kind of it's a 120-day deadline that we have to get it up there prior to the transition to the next edition, which will be the 8th edition on January 8th of the Florida Fire Prevention Code. The town adopts the Florida Fire Prevention Code, and then what I put together was some ordinance changes. Some of those brought about by discussions with the chief. Some of them do things, getting back to the gentleman's, thing as to clarity. Certain things in the fire prevention code are they speak to something general, and we more clearly define it for our local purpose. Signage, things like certain things, and that's kind of the clarity of it. But what I'll go through real quick is just some of the highlights. As far as this goes, the annual fire inspection fees, which is a big item, are kind of going away. I have with me Delray's schedule, which is 14 pages long. We are going to have some things that are fire fee related, but not for inspections. So that's one of the things the town has decided to move forward on. So, the division department be out there doing the annual inspections that are required by the Florida Fire Prevention Code and all the buildings. We will not be charging for that. So that's kind of a big item. As far as moving this forward, we're going to move the ordinance back to what was chapter 9. And when I went back through all the ordinance, between Delray's, I looked at everybody locally around us, Boca. The original ordinance for the town, there's only 9 items or 8 items in here. And the last 2 basically pertain to adopting Delray's fire ordinance, because y'all have been contracting fire services. So that kind of makes sense. So this is replacing, more specifically, instead of just saying, hey, we're adopting Delray's, now we're going to have our own ordinance. One of the other things we're going to do, which will help us manage the systems, because I've been here for, fairly short time. Y'all were introduced to me about 6 weeks ago. And I've been out to some of the buildings requested by Delray or by some of the buildings themselves. And there's a lot of things that are going on out there that we're working on to kind of bring people back into compliance. Some of the things are just because some of the buildings are older and it's, you know, between fire pumps, fire alarm systems, things like that, those things need to get taken care of. We're going to use a tool, which is a third-party organization that is going to help us keep all the records, make sure they're going to be reaching out to the buildings, making sure that the fire protection systems in all the buildings, and there's, you know, typical condominium is going to have a fire pump, standpipe system, sprinkler system, fire alarm system, and there could be some other ancillary systems. Those are all required to be inspected by a third-party entity that the building hires. They're also required by state statute to send us that information. I can only tell you, I've been in fire service for 30 years. That doesn't happen the way it's always supposed to. So we're gonna have this third-party entity that's gonna help me gather that information so we can be on top of fire safety in the town. And just to understand, Delray is going to that too. Boca is going to that. Fort Lauderdale's already doing it. The county is going to that. So we're not doing anything anybody else isn't doing. But it's gonna, and there won't be a direct, there's not gonna be a charge from us for those records. That is handled between the vendors that do the inspections and third-party entity. And they're all, you know, this is actively going on in the state of Florida and other states. And it's just to try to get a better handle on what's happening. One thing that we did list in here is for 1 and 2 family dwellings. We're taking Delray had a number of 13,000 square feet for those buildings to be sprinklered. We want to take it down to 7,500 square feet. The fire department dynamic is changing a little bit. We're a bit smaller, obviously. Our initial level of response is based on fewer people showing up in the initial response. We will always have mutual aid agreements and everything as that works its way out over time to have second and third due trucks and stuff show up if we have a significant event. The issue though is if we can control that, any kind of large scale fire by providing a new construction fire sprinklers, it's a benefit to the town and really long-term cost. So we can kind of control some of those things. Let's see, and it also gives, when you do that, it gives, fire sprinkler systems in residential properties. When you read what, their design is to give people time to get out of the fire, not necessarily to put the fire out.
Right.
That's really it, and that's the other purpose. We want to make sure people get out of a larger building in a timely manner and have the safety to do so. Let's see, what else would be, those are kind of the predominant issues. Again, as city manager was speaking about why we were kind of in a rush here is simply because this came around at the time as it relates to the triennial cycle. I also sit on the Fire Code Advisory Committee for the state of Florida. I represent Florida professional firefighters. It's a 9-person committee that makes recommendations, changes to the fire code. And I contacted the state fire marshal's office the other day just to find out if we were going to have a final meeting. They weren't really clear as to when that might happen, but could be as late as November. That's really kind of late, and I'm waiting to hear back to see if we're going to have a final meeting on what's going to be proposed. The Florida Fire Prevention Code is comprised of 2 books, 2 standards, NFPA 1 and NFPA 101. It's the fire code and the life safety code. They blend those 2 together and then they make amendments to it. And that's why it's the Florida Fire Prevention Code. Some states just adopt those books without any changes. Florida just every 3 years makes some modifications. A lot of that's brought by people that live in the state. A lot of it has to do with construction companies, different entities that want to come in and see if they can make some modifications that make sense in Florida. And eventually that goes through the legislature. So, but we're on, like I said, I sit on the committee. I've been on the committee for 6 years that makes those recommendations. And so that's kind of it. If y'all have any questions, here.
Matt, I see all the service company performing inspections and maintenance and all that.
Mhm.
Now, do they have to tell you or do we have to do it to condo has to do with that, all these tests are performed and okay.
Yeah, so the Florida Fire Prevention Code requires that all those systems be tested minimally on an annual basis. And that the building is required to get those inspections done. The service providers are required to tell me about it if there's things that need to get fixed. That's why the third party reporting system is kind of going to take over that. They'll literally be on the phone calling to get these reports in, and then those will be forwarded to us and we'll maintain them in our own database. And that'll all be done electronically. So it's, you know, it'll be good. We'll get firsthand information. They'll kind of chase it down. I think we've got 43 high-rise buildings in town. That's a lot of systems. And
So they'll chase down the service.
chase down the service providers, not going to be calling the condominium boards. They chase down the service providers, the people that are getting paid to do the inspections. And they're required to do them by the state, you know, and the buildings pay those people to do them. Their responsibility is to give us these reports and get us the deficiencies and so we can help manage that. You know, my philosophy on all of this is we're going to find some problems. And we will work with everybody to make sure those, you know, everybody wants to be in a safe building. I've never run up against somebody that was like, we're not going to do it because we don't care about being safe. That's not really the issue. But, you know, sometimes there's major problems, sometimes there's minor problems. And then it's a matter of like putting together a program that gets us where we want to be. And that may take some time. So I'm working with Delray Fire right now. I have a really good relationship with them. I did when I was, you know, fire marshal assistant chief in Boca. So we're working together to kind of transition through all this. It's going to be, you know, it should be relatively smooth, but there's some things out there that we need to take care of. And, you know, that's why I'm here. So, yes, sir.
I understand we dropped the inspection fees. The other fees, are they comparable to Delray and Boca, or has been any increase there?
Yes, so I went through and looked at, you know, what other local fees, obviously I know what the fees are in Boca. The fees could be adjusted. We did put together a fee schedule that was going to come up, I think, in a upcoming meeting. And those could be tailored to, you know, what you all think is appropriate. But there's certain things that we have to do, like we have to, because of state law change with regard to fireworks, right? You're now allowed to use fireworks 3 days out of the year. 4th of July, New Year's Day, and New Year's Eve Day. So, you know, we have to have some mechanism in our ordinance to either, you know, allow permitting of that, depending on the type of fireworks that they are, if they're covered under, you know, an FPA 1123 and 1124, you know, we got to kind of manage that. Those are kind of the heavier, bigger stuff. We're working on, as a matter of fact, city manager asked us to put together some sort of program or information that we can get out to the town regarding fireworks safety, just today. So that's something that's on the agenda. Thank you very much. That's a great idea. So it is. I mean, these are things that we need to do and you know, trying to get all this stuff started. We've got some time to amp everything up and we're going to get there. So a lot of the stuff, I'll be honest, I mean, we don't have to reinvent the wheel. We've got things that we can bring from other municipalities and that'll benefit us. You know, I've got some of those items. I mean, one of the other things that you guys are going to hear about probably from people is, if you're not already hearing it, is the bidirectional amplification requirements to make sure that all the fire radios and police radios work when we go in the buildings. The state passed, you know, a statute requiring that all the buildings bring this up, bring the buildings into compliance, meaning that they have to be able to, you have to be able to use the radios in the building, bottom line. And that deadline is 2025 for completion. You're supposed to have a plan by the end of 2024. The legislature may take that down the road a little bit. I don't know. We just have to be prepared for if they don't. The same thing happened with the sprinkler ordinance, as you guys know. And historically, you go back to Jeb Bush was when that was originally put in. And I don't remember when Jeb Bush was the governor now, you know, but I'm just saying, I mean, it's down the road a bit, you know, and they kept pushing it out every couple of years. Rick Scott put a stop to it one time because we had a significant event, not in the state of Florida, but elsewhere. And they said, hey, we got to get this done. But, you know, so we as fire marshals in the state are kind of like, we're waiting for the next, you know, next direction. So, but this seems to be staying pretty steady, and we're going to get this done. Communication inside the buildings is extremely important. So that's something that's coming, and I've got all the requirements. We adopted in our local ordinance, NFPA 1225, which is the most, the 22 edition, the most current edition, which is something that we talked about at the state level. The state is usually 3 to 6 years behind on standards that they adopt. This is important because, as you guys know, your telephone, cell phones, everything, that technology is changing daily almost. So we're adopting the most recent standard, and that will give the installers better guidelines as to what we need to do to achieve compliance. And it's just a roadmap. So that's why, you know, I recommended that we put that in here.
Is there anything else in here that's different than what we've had in the past?
Pretty well, as far as the city goes, the whole thing is different because there was only really 8 items that were in there. The first 6 in chapter 9, I think the last time that was updated was like 2006. So, the last 2 are just the references that we're gonna do whatever Delray's ordinance is. So I did go through and look at Delray's. They're very similar and you know, because I did the one in Boca. And they came and took the one that I did, and so it looks a lot the same. And you know, as far as adopting more specific ordinances, I mean, standards, some of those, the reason that they're in there, that you saw the list of standards, right? They're in there because they're not specifically adopted through the Florida Fire Prevention Code. The Florida Fire Prevention Code adopts a whole bunch of standards and references those standards. We, you know, I always pick some additional ones because they're pertinent to what we do here. You know, like we don't have one about, you know, relating to airports, but Boca did because they had an airport. You know, we adopted the stuff about movie making. Why? Because you don't know, they may want to make a movie in this area. They do it up and down the coast all the time. So we have certain things like that, you know, that are in there just to help us. You know, somebody comes in and wants to pull permits to do something. We at least have some guidelines that we can go back to do that.
I guess really what I was asking, is there anything in here that our citizens need to be made aware of that's different than what they had to follow in the past?
No, not really. I mean, we adopted the Florida Fire Prevention Code as, you know, the 8th edition. So the changes in there, I probably can provide an update once we finalize that on our committee and get that feedback back from the state. There's some of the stuff, you know, I don't think there's really anything that's that significant. The big thing that people are gonna, I think, see is that we're not gonna charge for fire inspections. And if you looked at the fee structures that Delray had in place, I mean, they weren't, you know, they weren't minuscule. You know, some of the larger buildings were paying some significant fees. So, you know, that's gonna be a benefit to everybody. And I think, you know, hopefully they'll appreciate that the town's made that decision. So,
Yeah, that's a good change.
yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you very much. You know, your experience is really valuable in putting this together. It gives me a lot of comfort that
Oh,
it's very thorough and it's exactly what it is that we need. I really liked hearing about all the prevention type activities that you're doing and the inspections and things. And yeah, I think it's all really great in what it is that we are looking for our community based.
Well, we appreciate that. We are planning to do a number of other things, and as we kind of gear up more and more over the next few months, we'll roll that out. And, you know, I know Chief will bring that to y'all when we do the commission meetings and kind of give you updates. We do plan on doing, getting some communications out to the entire town on a number of different issues. Kind of a little bit late. I have a whole, I'm going to be reaching out to the different condominium boards and try and get in front of everybody. That'll take a little bit of time. But we want to do that. Normally I go out and do a hurricane preparation packet, and it can be tailored to each building. It's a generic kind of book of information that I put together, but it gives you all the numbers that you need for the county. If anybody needs to go to the certain types of shelters that are, designated for people that have medical issues or something like that, all that stuff is in there and you can go register for that. So we have other things like that we're going to be rolling out. It's just gonna, like I said, we're just getting started.
That's terrific. That's great. So you mentioned that it's kind of on a expedited timeframe. So this is the introduction. Do we need the first reading and then the second reading
Yes.
soon?
So I believe you'll be doing this, the first reading on the first
Okay,
and the second reading, I think, on the 15th of August.
Okay.
Right around there. And then, I once, I expect we may have some additional questions. People may contact y'all and ask, hey, can you look into this issue? No problem. But we do need to get it to the state fire marshal's office before, September 1st.
Okay.
That's it.
well, we're fully support of,
Yeah.
going along with this fast timeframe. So.
Thank you very much.
I have just one brief thing that I just like clarified. You indicated that there would not be a charge for the fire inspections. But you also had indicated that there would be third-party inspectors. And there would be a charge then to.
Not to any of the buildings. The
Okay.
charge is paid by the vendor themselves. So that's between how that cost. Usually, we have not seen any changes in pricing by the vendors for their inspections based on Brycer, which is the company that we're looking at
Mhm.
doing this, because it's a benefit to the company. The vendor is, if we get things in where we have a compliance issue, I'm gonna be out there trying to work out how this is gonna get done. And, they benefit from that, if you understand my meaning.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Yep, you got it.
Excellent. Okay, so moving along to the consent agenda. Does anyone have any questions about the items in the consent agenda?
Mhm.
So if we could have a motion for the items in the consent agenda.
I move that we accept the consent agenda as presented.
Second that.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries unanimously. Moving on to unfinished business. We have item A, continued discussion on the request to amend settlement agreement with Highland Beach Real Estate Holdings, Milani, the eastern parcel 10E, non-park property. So who'll be presenting?
So it'll be just Len and I reporting back to the commission. I thought Len did a great job of putting together a framework of which we have to make the consideration being requested. And again, there's two requests. The latest one, I don't think the public knows. And again, but the process that we're going to talk about, which is, can we amend it? What we worried about spot zoning, other concerns of that nature. Len responded, and in that process, the Milani family had asked for some additional height on the west side properties. So at this point, what we have is a process by which you can make those considerations. We haven't discussed if you want to, but really the process by which you can do that. So, and again, I'll just recap Len's stuff and then Len can take it from there in any greater detail. I thought he did a great job is that one, we got to define a public benefit, right? We should also have, which I thought was great, is a public hearing on passing a resolution granting whatever those amendments or some variant of those amendments. And in so doing, we will have notified the public. I didn't ask anybody, I like a lot of due process. So the public around that area needs to be notified that this amended request, because we settled this in court without prejudice, or with prejudice.
With
actually,
prejudice.
With prejudice. So this was settled. So we amended, we need to let the public know that we're going to consider something else and give the public an opportunity to weigh in on it. So again, there's two requests that are coming forward. One, what we heard from Ms. Milani was that 10-year extension. I would say an unabated 10-year extension on the east side. So she has an additional 10 years. She doesn't have to wait 10 years to do it, the development on the ocean front, but gets an extra 10 years to make that decision, predicated that she wants to live there a little bit longer. The other one came out in a review with myself, Mr. Remus, her architect, that the design they have in place currently for the west side properties, which is the 9-unit development, if you will, which is north of Grand Court, west of A1A, that 9 units, they are requesting the application of our current height ordinance, which would grant them the extra 5 to 6 feet-ish that they need to build what they've designed. But in order to do any of those things, we have to amend it. And that amended process is we got to define a public benefit. Other thing I forgot, I thought Len did a great job adding is to make that consideration, not only is there a public benefit, but what do we get for that exchange? Why, what, to make that exception of that 30-year grant? So, you know, I'll leave it to you all to discuss what you may or may not want to do. But Len, I think, put out a good process to follow.
Yeah, it's just a little follow-up. I mean, that Marsh was talking about the additional consideration. Because without that additional consideration, what is the public benefit? I mean, we made a deal in 1995. Every parties agreed to abide by the deal. One party wants to change the deal. Well, what does the other party, the town, get in exchange for that? So I just wanted to follow up on that, but I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Okay, so I wanted to open up for discussion. Judy, you
Yes,
wanna go first?
I would like to know what would have been the impact fees? And how are they predicated?
So I see that Jeff isn't here. The county calculates it as a percentage of construction on that impact fee. I won't say similar to Palm Beach Gardens, but as far as we don't contest their impact fees, but we do not collect the county's impact fees. So if the impact fees that we would have are relatively minuscule, the local ones, but the larger ones are the county-wide impact fees for roads and schools and things of that nature. But they have a percentage calculation, almost like a building permit amount, probably on a project that size, somewhat significant. But I could find that out if that was a consideration to be granted back to the public for road improvements in schools. Could be ideally something that wasn't provided that could be provided.
Would that include, doesn't appear it would, but building permits? That would be municipal.
Yeah, she has to pay the
Yeah.
agreement says they have to pay the building permit fees currently. I think that's it. And then we
Building
provide the
permit
taps. There's no tap fees or anything like that. So,
From a financial perspective, what ability does the Downtown have to collect a monetary fee? What would be permissible?
You mean as far as that additional consideration
Yes.
being a monetary fee? It's what the commission determines it is. I mean, if, you know, is that a public benefit though? I mean, it could be, you know, you could use it to enhance something within the town for the benefit of the residents, but I don't know what that fee would be. It would be something that would be negotiated between the parties.
yeah, and I would suggest, oh,
No.
you want to, okay, go ahead.
My concern is, I do agree, by the way, with your line of reasoning here. My concern is that any extra benefit the town might be receiving would not be viewed as a quid pro quo, that we're doing it because we're getting something, and it wouldn't be. However, so maybe perhaps there's phase one and phase two. Phase one being public hearing, et cetera, as you go through the process to determine whether it's an approved, would be approved. The second thing, after that is complete, to try to attempt to get a enhancement of the fire department, enhancement of we're paying for the new signs leading into town. It's just as crazy example, some examples, but that might be, but I don't think we got to be careful not to view that as we're doing it because we're getting something that's not appropriate for the town. We first have to do what's appropriate for the town.
Agreed. Agreed.
But I would encourage, and if that's something that you've now vocalized, I would leave that to be offered by the other party in consideration of this. We're willing to do these kind of things. So that's an offer made versus a solicitation of the offer.
Yeah, and the other thing, and I mentioned it in the memo, is once you open it back up, then it's subject to challenge again. Which is another thing that concerns me from the town's perspective.
As it stands, without some more clarification, I don't see where the town benefits from doing this at all. Agreement. Thank you, by the way, because you gave all kinds of information didn't have before, was personally under a different misconstruction. She doesn't have to do anything on that east side piece of property. Nothing in the agreement says she must.
Correct.
It just says she can.
Correct.
And 30 years is a long time to just sit there and not decide to do anything. And probably she'd take the next 10 years and not do anything either. So why would we do that? The 5 to 6 feet on the west side, I need to hear from Jeff about. Because how does that impact our current code? In our current code, would she be allowed to go that high?
I believe so. I believe she gets the additional height as it's calculated from. Because right now our code, what's different is the settlement agreement bases it on 0 on the datum, right? The vertical datum where basically sea level 0, 48 feet. Our height is based on finished floor, so your garage doesn't count.
Right.
Right, so if the garage where the first level is parking has to be accounted for in the settlement agreement. But if they were to apply our current code, garage doesn't count, then they get 50 feet on top of that. So they get significantly more height than counting from base flood elevation of 0, or not base flood elevation, sorry, at 0 and moving up.
Right, but I'm taking what Len said to heart. And to be honest, I wouldn't want to open up this agreement at all. I mean, I understand that she could have done it under current code in a different way. But there are huge concessions in this. I mean, I kind of made a little chart for myself based on what was current code and what's allowed. Huge differences.
Yes, ma'am.
And she's kind of waiting till the last minute to do anything. So, and she just came in and said, gee, I want to do this. I don't see where we benefit.
I get that.
I mean,
This is a settlement from a case, so it's kind of hard. I mean, the height, I guess, like Marshall said, you can go up higher with a new code. But I don't know, with a public meeting with the people, if it's going to block some views of any condos around there, I don't know exactly. And
you would have a lot of people from Boca Highland
Like,
coming in and being very unhappy.
might be our answer then.
And that's what we would, if you were willing to consider it, that's what the public hearing would draw forward is. And again, I think it's gonna be Boca Highland.
Oh, yeah.
Cause I know I've had a conversation with David, like, maybe a condo on the north side, 5, 6, 8 feet more in the south, doesn't trigger you as passionately as if you were on the 8th floor of Bramer Island. Now you're looking into someone's deck.
Or
From your,
even
you know.
the townhouses.
Right,
or
Grand
even-
Court.
Yeah, Grand
Yeah.
Court. And-
But,
Yeah,
and
there-
those are your substantially affected persons essentially in
Right.
Boca Highland.
I mean, there were a couple on the
There are
other
others,
side,
but-
but not really. I mean, yeah, it's pretty much. Oh, yeah, I could tell you for a fact, there would be some very unhappy people.
Marshall, on the east side, and I think it was reading there's 4 dwellings they can put there under the agreement. What would they get today? I mean, is it
Probably one.
Single family home.
One massive, I mean,
Yeah,
don't,
I mean, even under that would be one, but yeah.
yeah, but I mean, under the current code, you could build one
Very large.
30,000 square foot home. I mean, you could build something massive. But under this code, they do get some that, again, they have an advantageous zoning conditions where they could do 4 units that are attached, 3 0 lot lines, 2 splits with service quarters and pool. I mean, 0 lot lines. So the neighbors probably wouldn't be excited that, under the settlement agreement, they can do it is they right up to the property line with walls and stuff. Those things kind of go away under the current code.
But under current code, Jeff, could she, Mrs. Malani, build on the east side a separate guest, like a guest quarters above a garage, or a separate building that's a maid's cottage? Could she do that on the property on the east side of the road?
In addition to what she currently has?
Well, I'm not sure what she currently has.
No, so under the current zoning code, could you have a secondary? Luckily, the planner got trapped today and she's
Yeah.
here, so she gets to answer these
I was gonna
questions.
say, interesting.
So, not in addition to what the settlement agreement.
Okay.
So if the settlement agreement goes
Right.
away, the Milani family could build on the oceanfront property, and they could build a quite substantial size home. The question was for Ingrid, could a service quarter or maid's cottage or secondary dwelling or something of that nature?
House. kind of thing.
Accessory
Yeah.
dwelling.
You can't have a cabana, but you can have something like a bathroom next to that kind of stuff.
Yeah, you can have like a pool cabana, but there's limits on the square footage. If I remember correctly, I think it's not more than 150 square feet.
But you couldn't have
Uh,
another unit, Ingrid.
yeah,
correct?
So definitely only
You
one.
couldn't have like another accessory dwelling unit.
Right, you could have an accessory dwelling,
can.
it is permitted. I'm looking at
Okay.
the actual permitted
Yes,
uses. too.
because one of the things that this grants would be servants' quarters, separate from the building, I guess.
Yeah, I don't see service
agrees.
quarters verbatim in their permitted uses table. But again, there's accessory dwellings, so I guess it's.
Yeah,
the same.
it's just what yeah. That would be an accessory dwelling. Okay,
And another thing, the settlement agreement runs with title. Not just the Milani family.
right. Yeah, assigns heirs, et
Yes.
cetera.
Yeah, so as far as the height thing goes, I guess she was trying to do the most advantageous, the current code and the
The most
settlement, just what
advantageous
to give her
to
the
her.
highest.
Correct.
Okay,
And It
okay.
isn't that the height number is that much different. It's just that how you start,
Right.
where that zero measuring point in the settlement code, it's at 0. Whereas under current code's finished floor, which is your first floor and the garage doesn't count against you.
Mhm.
So it gives you quite a different scope of height that you
Right.
potentially could go with.
Right, you can build up the property and then increase your finished floor.
Well, I agree with what's been said so far. I don't see a public benefit whatsoever. And I'm also concerned about there's a detriment, right? Because if we open this up, you've identified that you're concerned that there could be, potential problems. So doesn't appear to be a benefit. And if anything, we could be subjecting ourselves to something negative. I don't know what else to say. So I am not in favor so it sounds like there's two questions before us, the height question and the extension. I personally am not in favor of either of these things, but depending on what everybody else thinks, I mean, I'd be willing to go along with a public hearing on this to hear what the public wants on this. And if we were to do a public hearing, I would want it to be in the months of January, February, March, when people are actually here, where we have the ability to advertise this and make sure that everyone is fully aware. But I would also be fine with making the
Yeah, if-
decision of not going forward and not having the public.
I think if a majority of the commission members are not in favor of some sort of amendment, I don't really see we should move forward with the public. I think the public hearing can make things a little messy. Because people want different things and there's different interests involved. And so look, right now we have an agreement. It has a time frame. We can stick to the agreement. We have no obligation to modify.
And there was a generous timeframe, and it's not like it was
very-
just 5 years. It was 30 years,
years.
which we
Predates
all
all of
knew,
us, for
yeah,
sure.
which we all knew this was coming. This 30 years, it's been well communicated. There are no surprises here. So there's a number of issues. It's been a long time. There is no public benefit. That's my opinion.
Yeah, that's my stopping point. There's no public benefit. So if we don't find that, I don't see how we can go beyond that. Because that's our benchmark. And it's a private benefit. It's not a public benefit.
No, I agree with you, Mayor, there's no benefit for us and, it is an agreement from a settlement, which how can you change that? I mean, that's, like you said, 30 years ago, that's a long time. They had to build on it and they had their opportunity and that's it.
Yeah, and you can still build on the property. It's not like they can't build on the
Oh,
property. There's
absolutely.
just not all these different variations of
There's not these
options.
different entitlements, correct?
Well, if we have to find, or let me pose it as a question. The issue of public benefit, is it something that we have to find prior to going to public hearing?
Well, it's something that as far as, so in originally approving the agreement, the commission had to find that there was a public benefit and it was in the best interest of the residents of the town of Highland Beach. So essentially, you need to find by amending this agreement under whatever circumstances. That amendment is again in the public interest and in the best interest of the residents of the town of Highland Beach.
So I think that it's hard to speak to a lack of or the presence of a public benefit without looking further.
Except when it was done, the public benefit was stopping a
We're
lawsuit.
stopping a lawsuit.
Yes.
And-
Stopping,
And
yeah.
if we do this again, we may open ourselves up to another lawsuit because you open up the whole agreement.
Correct.
Well, that.
And that's a
concerns-
downside.
And that's the opposite of a public benefit, right?
Yeah,
That's putting us
yeah.
in jeopardy.
Yeah.
And
that-
isn't, and we've
that-
been made this clear that we needed this benefit and we've been asking for what Milani thinks is the benefit. And it's not our burden to prove the benefit. It's the individual asking, and there has been no benefit put forward. It's not our burden to prove whether there is one. or
Okay.
not.
Well, in light of that, I would agree that I do not see now a public benefit. It's not obvious to me. In fact, because of if we do extend it for that term without modification on the specifications, that that the enhancements can go well beyond the intention of why we would be extending it so that she herself could live there a number more years. We don't know if in fact we did. It wouldn't be a guarantee.
Right.
Nor would we seek that necessarily.
Look, she can live there as long as she likes. It's her property. It's just the agreement, but it's her property and she can do what she wishes with it.
And the property has a substantial value. Let's not forget.
Oh,
This is,
yes,
it's a wide, deep
wide, deep ocean.
oceanfront piece of property.
Yes, ma'am.
In the safest town in Florida.
In the safest town in Florida.
6 miles of pair.
Is there any public comment on this? I can open that up for public comment. So if there's no more discussion, I don't know if anyone has do we need to make a motion on this?
I don't think you need to, and I
Okay.
don't think you want to make a motion. I will communicate back with Ms. Milani that the commission concerns. And if she wishes to pursue it further, then that request would have to be in writing and defining what I hear is that public benefit. Define that clearly for us. And she could petition back. Nothing keeps her from continuing to petition or clarify that request further, but I will inform her in writing that the commission is not moving forward at this time, but she can, add more clarity if she wishes.
Okay, thank you. Moving on. Item B, continued discussion of the Troiano family requests regarding lot split at 4611 South Ocean. Oh,
Sure, yep.
Yeah.
So similar, not really similar to the last one, but at the last meeting, both properties which are adjacent were discussed. This as a different request. This is for a lot split request. Mr. Rubin has looked into the matter and is, instead of amending our ordinance, there is the ability to grant a commission issued variance based on a recommendation from the Board of Appeals and Adjustment and a site plan to allow that split to occur with the variance for which all have discussed the unique nature of the property would grant that ability to give a variance. So
Yeah, I think that was a good summary. You know, at the last meeting, the commissions, you know, we requested language and I mean, I was knocking my head trying to come up with language and then realizing really this is one property. It's a unique property.
Mhm.
Where we do have a couple of other properties that are bisected, but this is the only one that would, the western lot would be non-conforming. So, you know, I'm thinking about it. And then I said, well, it's a unique circumstance. Well, what's the mechanism to address unique circumstances? Is really a variance. And so under Florida law, variance standard is very high and it's hard to meet, but it has to be something unique to the property. And I believe this is something unique to the property. This is a very unique circumstance. It's a lot that's been in existence for a very long time that's bisected by a state road. So it seems the perfect opportunity story. It seems almost teed up for a variance request. So that's my recommendation, but I'd be happy to answer any questions. I'm sure Ms. Troiano wishes.
Well, and I just
Speak.
wish to say hello, everyone, and thank you, really. And I agree. So, and I appreciate your, the idea that you came up with, and I think it will work out just fine.
If I'm looking at this picture correctly,
Yes, ma'am.
the width of the lots on both sides of the property appear to be the same.
Yes,
So it's obviously big enough to put something, a home on.
yeah, no, it's right. It's big enough to put a home on. I mean, it's not the same size, but
It is.
yes.
Yeah, the square footage
And-
of the lot is enough. You see several single family homes on
Yeah,
that side of the
and
lot.
Right.
it's in fact making it less dense than it technically could be if it were wider.
And, you know,
So-
it's an appropriate use for
Yeah.
that property.
It is, it
Yeah,
is.
you know.
Right.
I-
And it,
because,
and
We
the
all
step-
kind of agreed at the staff level. We're like, hey, yeah,
Yeah.
it seems like.
And, and all the setbacks would apply and be able to accomplish the goal. So I think it makes good sense.
I think the suggestion of going for a variance makes excellent sense rather than changing the code or the ordinance.
You generally never want to change the code for like a very unique circumstance.
Right.
It's like a rule, like that was in the back of my head the whole time, so.
And on a benign nonconformity like this, remember we had talked about that last time, that's the variance with the up in Cape Canaveral and through the, legislature of Florida, they said it made sense to do something like that. So it's good. So my question is what do I do next? Do I just
You would have to actually file a variance application, so.
a variance
I don't
application?
know if
Okay.
Ingrid was here, but
I could walk you through it.
Yeah,
Ingrid and I will
okay.
walk you through it.
staff
Okay.
will help you.
It's just like applying almost kind of like for a building permit. A
Right.
site plan, a real basic site plan like
Right,
we
right.
discussed.
Okay.
Submit that, all the minutes and Len's opinion will go
Mhm.
there. I think Len actually is the attorney for the Board of Appeals and Adjustment.
I am.
So he'll be able to walk the group through his findings at that
Okay.
meeting as well, so.
Very good.
Is there any
Okay,
action you need from the commission?
No,
No.
there's
Okay.
no actually need from the commission. It's just, if the commission is okay with this path, this is the path that we'll pursue.
I
Awesome.
think it makes a lot of, yeah,
Yes.
you want to go through?
Yes, I'm happy that we found that there is an avenue
Mhm,
for
me
you
too.
to resolve the issues. It's great.
Excellent. Thank you. Thanks,
Yeah, I think
everyone.
we're all happy about that.
Yes.
All right, good. Thank you very much. Okay.
Excuse me, for the record, could you please state your name?
Laura Troiano.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, moving on to item C, the fire rescue implementation update.
Chief, you want to bring us up?
I can do that. Afternoon, everybody. Glenn Joseph, Fire Chief,
Good afternoon.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commissioners. While I get my technology operating, there we go. So, quick update on the implementation process. Let's start with the candidates. For the fire department, we have 43 captain candidates. We closed out the admission process at the end of June. We had 43 candidates for 3 positions. After we kind of went through all the applications, the three of us graded them, myself, Matt and Tom. And we took everybody that graded 75% and above. We're still left with 33 candidates, so we're gonna put them through another behavioral assessment tool just to get a good idea of what their personalities are like, and then we'll try to narrow it down to 10 candidates so we could go through an interview. Tentatively scheduled for sometime in August as we get the numbers down. For the firefighter paramedics, we have 28 candidates right now, 24 have completed all the elements. We need 15, so it's still kind of a small number. So we're working through on that, and the firefighter driver, we need 6 candidates. We have 9, 8 have completed all the elements so far. So we're thinking about extending. We're going to close it out this month, but we're thinking about extending to the end of August because I think a lot of the people that are on the captain's list may be interested in the driver's position. So when we kind of sort that number out and narrow it down a little bit, we'll give them the opportunity maybe to reapply as a driver. So we'll get some more, because those people will be the senior people behind the captain, and they'll be able to step up to that captain's position. So there's some people that are maybe interested in doing that. I'll give us a wider pool for our drivers and a deeper pool experience wise. So that's the recruiting update. Construction, they're looking to put the structural slab down on Friday, this coming Friday. That'll allow us to put the floor of the first floor down. There's some engineering changes that might have to happen between now and then. So that might delay a day or two depending on how we get this engineering changes made. The changes we'll make will actually improve the stability of the structure. So we kind of want that to happen. So that's where we are with that. The next, you saw in the consent agenda, we had a pretty large purchase. So the next major purchase is for the self-contained breathing apparatus. And the reason why we're doing it early is because there's 190-day lead time before delivery on average. So that's 6 months from say August would put us really receiving the materials by February, which is kind of close to our start date. So I wanted to give us about 60 days for, delays and such, but that's the self-contained breathing apparatus for all the firefighters. And that's a fairly large purchase, but we're able to get a co-op buying group, gave us a 15% discount. So it was just significantly less, it was less by a good margin as far as the initial quote of where we originally started. So that's good news. So we're bringing it down. Hopefully we'll be able to finalize that and bring that to you sometime in August, early August, if possible. I just want to remind you again that we're going to be doing some hydrant testing towards October. We're going to put a flyer out to all the neighborhoods so that people know that they'll be flushing the hydrants. And so there may be some rusty water in the neighborhoods, that kind of thing. But we need to do that to assess the quality and of the water supply, which is part of the insurance service organization's assessment. That's going to be done in January. Delray's leading that charge right now to do that assessment because it's still technically providing us fire service protection. The good part is that whatever rating they get, which is more than likely going to be a 1, we'll carry that rating for the next 4 years until we prepare ourselves to also get a 1. So it'll give us 4 years to kind of build up infrastructure and those kind of agreements to make all that happen. So just giving you a heads up, I'll tell you every meeting that of the fire hydrant testing, because it could be annoying to have standing water in the driveways, etc. But we need to do it. It's part of the process. The fire department identification application, which is the last major milestone with the state. We're there. I finished the 2 reviews of the policies and procedures. So we're ready to send that up. What I'm doing right now is to have a checklist of all the policies you need to have. We have all the policies. I don't want to send it up as a bulk. I wanted to crosswalk all of the different elements of that checklist in a PDF so they could actually click and do a bookmark. So we're right to it to expedite the process of approval. We also need a CAMP plan, comprehensive emergency management plan. So we're working on that next to get it draft out. And then the COOP plan, which is the continuity of operations after disaster. So we have to update. We have a plan right now, but it's kind of thin. So we're going to have to bulk it up and get it to where it needs to be, because in our current CAMP plan, basically called that, right? So we have to kind of build up all of the infrastructure we need on the language to take care of the public safety issues that that could come up. And of course, you just approved the locution system, which is going to be for the fire department alerting system. That's going to allow us to move forward with the Palm Beach County Common Dispatch Program. Saves a lot of money. That's doing it that way. And of course, the Lucas devices, which we've already approved, and that's going to improve our ability to provide the best quality EMS care in 3 miles of paradise. Questions?
So is the construction on track? There-
Yes,
it-
yes, we are.
You're, and so I wasn't aware of that. The way the ISO rating works. So when Delray goes for the ISO rating in January, you maintain that ISO rating for 4 years?
3 to 4 years, yeah, sometimes 5, depending on that. So you keep the last rating you have until you get evaluated again. And then for us to be evaluated, we have to invite them in. So we have to say we're ready for an evaluation. So if we waited 4 years to get evaluation, we have an ISO rating that they got for 4 years. And unless we invite them in and we get a lower rating, keep the last rating. we have.
I think that's excellent. That was one of my main concerns. I think that's great.
So we're trying to facilitate their
Sure.
assessment
Sure.
to be as high as possible. So that's why we want the hydro testing with them, provide them with the numbers. We actually using the same vendor that they're using, so you can make that number exchange as smooth and as efficient as possible.
That's excellent. Excellent updates.
Any other question?
Not for me.
Great.
Thank you
All
very
right, thank
much. Next item, the Florida Department of Transportation Triple R project update.
There really isn't any major updates since our last meeting. I'm waiting to hear from them for the construction meeting date. They're still going through their elaborate civil and traffic engineering review process of 90% plans. So the plans really haven't changed since our last meeting. So we're just waiting for them to put all of the next series of pieces of statutory documents that they have in place. You will be getting shortly, I'm looking at Tricia to remind me of dates. The utility structure adjustments. So all of our our catch bases, all our manholes have to be adjusted. So Len looked at that contract with the state of Florida. We'll bring that to you in August, and then we'll make payment to them via an escrow for their contractor to just make those adjustments to the structures as they move through. Other than that, really just on them for what's the final set of plans. My guess is not much is going to change from what they've looked at, but we'll get all those confirmations shortly, and then they'll have that big construction meeting. Late summer, early fall is what they're indicating. I just haven't got a date yet. Unless they've contacted you and they'll nope. So they haven't reached out to us to set up use our facility or anything. So we're waiting.
Any comments? Okay, so moving on to new business. Designation of a voting delegate for the Florida League of Cities 97th Annual Conference.
Well, I'd like to place my name.
And I would second that.
Okay.
Do we just need one person?
Yes,
Oh.
just one.
So if we have a motion,
I make a motion.
or I think, or
Yeah,
should
yeah.
someone else?
She make-
I make a motion that we appoint Judy Goldberg as the voting delegate to Florida League.
Thank you.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Okay. Town Commission comments, Commissioner Goldberg. Any comments?
Well, again, a very good informative meeting. And I think we have a lot on our plate with the budget, and I look forward to getting more information and going through it and having a good resolution for our upcoming year.
Yeah, I second that, and it's always a pleasure to hear from the chief and see how our new fire department is going. I had one question, I forgot, but will you guys be interested in I know some of the other areas, the fire department will do CPR, first aid, even if it's for money, courses, so some of them know.
Absolutely.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's one of the candidates we're looking at was a CPR instructor, ACLS, stop the lead. So we're looking at people that bring certificates with them. So we could, one of the first things I want to do with the manager's agreement is to teach all of us, city employees, CPR, first aid and that kind of stuff. And then we'll open it up to the community, that anybody if they're in the condominium. We did one in Toscana already, they loved it. And we did the first stop the bleed AED training for them. They requested it and they've already wanted to schedule it for next year. So we will do that too for the community, condominium homeowners associations or individuals. So we'll have public meetings here at the fire department. And then we'll go to your location if you have a group of, say, 12 or more people that you want to train. We could do that for you, but we've already done one. We have one on schedule for next year. And as we get closer to having people on board, we'll make those available to anybody who wants them.
Yeah, because I know we have a small condo, so I don't know how many people, unless we could group it together with another one. Would be good, I guess.
Yeah, we come to you or you come to us.
All right,
Doesn't matter.
All
We're
right.
here to serve.
all right. Thank you, Chief.
Wonderful, thank you.
I just want to thank our incredible staff. That every report we have received today has been wonderful. We've gotten great advice. And for a tiny little town, I think we are doing really well. So kudos to you all.
Any additional?
Nothing additional from me?
I see it's not on the agenda, but
I know.
hopefully you'll extend the liberty to me to speak for a few moments again. It's with a little bit of a heavy heart, for those that may have known, Bernard Featherman, former mayor of town of Highland Beach, passed, was it Friday? Great guy. Hopefully, but people that got to know him or meet him, he was really affable and nice and courteous to the general public. Big presence. Is that what we're saying, Rich? There you go. Rich is always on top of that for us. So when we get more details to share with the community and the public, we will be putting that out. But I just wanted to give everybody an update on that. On our meeting schedule, and I will have, Teresa will send something out, if not this afternoon, first thing in the morning, just an update to the schedule. So we've been working with Linelda. Things have tweaked and changed as we've moved through the budget season. But the list, so we'll have a meeting on August 1st. We'll have a regular meeting on August 15th. And then we're holding for a special meeting August 24th, which would be budget cleanup, if you will. If we need a workshop, healthcare, the salary warrant, things of those natures, the last remaining approvals that are tied to the budget. So we'll have that's on a Thursday. That'll be a special meeting to just hit the final budget items and see if anything popped up that we need to consider or discuss. And then moving into September again, we have on September 5th, we have a regular commission meeting. Immediately following at 5:01 is our first statutory public hearing on the budget and approval of the water and sewer budget. Then September 19th, we'll have a regular commission meeting. The following day on the 20th at 5:01 would be the final approval of our budget and trim notice guidelines that we have to put in place. And then we'll be back in October to a normal schedule. So there's a couple of special meetings in there. We will send out an email clarifying those. And we'll go from there again. Unless something, and that's why we have the August 24th is also could be a budget workshop. If something jumps up on us, healthcare comes up weird numbers and we need to spend time and drilling down further. We can have that time and address any budget things. I did send a line item budget out, and as we move forward, I'll keep sending them to you. It's a lot of information when, you do it at the department level. It's pretty clean. But again, we're in good financial position. Taking on next year is a big year for us. So this is a big budget, bringing in fire. So we're excited about that, but there's a lot of work. Again, as Commissioner David said, and the commission approved, good staff, great staff pulling all this together and keeping us moving. Again, lastly, Florida League of Cities, who's attending? I just want to get a final head count.
Let's see.
Was that lukewarm or yes, no?
Everybody.
Yep,
Everybody.
everybody's
Orlando meeting.
Yeah, Orlando, the Florida, okay, great. So with that, I will try to, Tricia and I will try to reach out to you to set up for me. We'll have some dinners together, but also like little meetings to discuss your next year's objectives. What do you want to see? Where do you want to go? What am I doing that you like? What do you want me to change? Those type of things. We'll have those opportunities there for one-on-ones as well. So that'll be a good time and a lot of great sessions. A lot of Form 6 stuff. You guys are going to be hot. I'm telling you, these local commissioners don't like this Form 6. So there'll be a lot of conversation on that and some other legislative updates and meet some colleagues and see what they're wrestling with and things of that nature. So it's really informative. It's a very productive sessions there. So with that, I am good. Thank you.
Town attorney.
Thank you,
Okay.
Mayor.
All right. Well, with that, we can adjourn. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.